Race review time for the 2019 French Grand Prix. Round 8 of the 2019 season was, to be honest with you, not the best. And although there will be spoilers ahead, so don't worry, you've still got another 30 seconds before I spoil the result. If you don't want to know, let me just tell you this. To save you 2 hours of your life, not really much went on in this race. And of course, we're going to talk about that throughout the next 15 minutes, the review. But to be honest with you, lap 1, a little bit of drama. The last 4 laps, a little bit of drama. But apart from that, really, it was pretty stale with you, to be honest. And that's not really what I want to be coming away from a race saying. But as always, if you don't want to know the result, you have been warned. I think today we're going to go through in race order because the race itself, again, not much happened. So then, let's start off with our front 3. The same as yesterday. Are we surprised? Not really. Lewis Hamilton picking up what I believe is a 6th career Grand Slam. That's the pole position. Oh no, he didn't get the Grand Slam because Vettel got the fastest lap on the final lap. So no, Hamilton did not get a Grand Slam. However, pole position, led every single lap, race win. Pretty straightforward for Lewis Hamilton. A few minor complaints early on, something apparently loose in the car, some engine issues, but to be honest with you, pretty plain sailing all weekend for Mercedes. Bottas, a distant P2. In the end, Leclerc, who, to be honest, for the most of the race, was, 4 or 5 seconds behind Bottas, on the final lap, was able to catch up. That seemed to be out of nowhere. None of the commentary seemed to pick up that Leclerc was closing in on Bottas. So whether there was a mistake late on, whether it was because there was just so much traffic late on, I don't really know. But Leclerc had a bit of a sniff, didn't he, at the end of the race, but wasn't able to get a move done. However, Leclerc himself, Hamilton has a 100% podium record. I believe Bottas has only missed the podium twice, and that was in Monaco and last time out in Canada. Leclerc now has 2 podiums in a row, his 3rd in his Formula 1 career. So maybe this weekend is the boost he needed to continue the fight with Sebastian Vettel, who Vettel himself, not the best weekend. But to be honest with you, the front 3, not really much to say. Leclerc, like I mentioned, went for a couple of moves on that final lap, but the Mercedes was just far too good this particular weekend. Again, didn't mention it at the beginning, but apologies if there is a slight echo. Construction at the house at the moment, can't really change that. However, we will crack on with the rest of the grid. P4, Max Verstappen, I think a little bit like the top 3. Quiet day for Max. First lap, extra juicy. Really getting involved, fighting in the first couple of corners with the 2 McLaren boys who did so well in qualifying. Then seemed to have a really good run on Charles Leclerc. Had a go at him for the first few laps, couldn't get by. Don't think I saw him after that, to be honest with you. So Max Verstappen did what he needed to do. Once again, outclassing his teammate Pierre Gasly, who was at his home race. We'll talk about him a little bit later on. Lots of stories in the midfield for sure, but the front guys, not so much. Sebastian Vettel P5 and the fastest lap. 11 points, probably the best he could have hoped for today. Started P7, difficult qualifying yesterday. Got in front of the 2 McLarens pretty early on. And then, to be honest with you, that was it. Tried to do a little bit more of a unique strategy. Plan F. Plan F. Yes. I don't know what other plans went so wrong. But, yeah, not a good race from Vettel. Not a particularly good weekend. And Hamilton now a pretty mighty lead in the championship standings. We'll have a look at that a little bit later on as well. One to forget for Sebastian Vettel. But again, I mean, clean race. Can you really have hope for any more? I don't know. Behind Vettel, though, lots of stories to be said. Carlos Sainz P6, another really solid job from him in the McLaren. I believe now that gives him the best of the rest title at the moment for this season. And with Daniel Ricciardo just behind, maybe an impending penalty coming to Ricciardo, that could give a little bit of a gap for Sainz in that best of the rest title. So keep an eye on that over the next few hours if there is a penalty for Ricciardo. But Sainz himself got in front of Norris early on, had a go at Verstappen in that first lap, and looked really racy behind Verstappen in the first few laps. So that car looked so good this weekend. Troubles for Norris late on, which we'll again talk about in a moment. But Sainz himself, a really strong race. Again, proving why McLaren signed him. You know, last season, lots of people saying that he was nowhere good. Well, nowhere good enough compared to Hulkenberg, and definitely didn't deserve a Red Bull seat. I would question people maybe have changed their minds, and maybe Red Bull would have been better signing Sainz instead of Gasly, but that's a topic of conversation for a completely different day. But just food for thought, I would say. But Sainz, again, like the top 5, a really quiet day for him in the end. But just behind Sainz all race was Lando Norris. Again, McLaren looking super good this weekend. However, hydraulic pressure issues late on in the race forced him to start losing time to Sainz, who Norris was gaining on Sainz and I think would have probably taken 6th place. But these issues, Ricciardo was pulling in, gaining, and it was looking like looking super marginal to be in the final few laps. On the very last lap, Ricciardo went for it around the outside, ran wide, came back onto the circuit. Norris then had to go wide, then lost 2 more places to Raikkonen and Hulkenberg. Raikkonen was then into P7. Ricciardo then goes off the track again to overtake Raikkonen, who then gives him a little bit of space. Very messy. Also frustrating that the TV cameras weren't focused on this because they were looking at Leclerc versus Bottas, all on the final lap, considering it'd been a bit of a snooze fest the entire way through. The final lap, very juicy indeed. But Norris losing out, P10 in the end. That's 2 pretty big mechanical failures, 2 races in a row that is. Canada, obviously, that big suspension brake overheating caused him to DNF. This time, just held on to a point, but all of those guys in that mix there, bit scrappy on the final lap. Ricciardo, strong race, went for a little bit of a different strategy, but lots of overtaking from him. Kimi Raikkonen could end up being P7 in this race if Ricciardo gets a penalty. Really impressed with him once again today. Plenty of overtakes from Raikkonen, starting outside the top 10, working his way up to 8th. Exactly what Alfa Romeo hired him. That guy still has it, bossing it once again. Hulkenberg, quiet day, but double point score for Renault in their home race. Very happy indeed. Gasly, I mean, what can you say? No points. Perez got a bit of a stupid penalty really early on. What else could he do? I would say to that. Kvyat and Albon outside the points. The 2 Haas cars outside the points. The 2 Williams outside the points as well. None of those cars showed any real pace. And Grosjean DNF'd. Ends another awful weekend. Was ahead of Magnussen, but yeah, another awful weekend for the Haas team. Right then, race review. I've gone with a 3. Maybe a bit lenient, maybe a bit harsh. So let me know in the comments below, because I've seen on Twitter some people quite enjoyed this one. For me, no. I mean, that virtual safety car at the end really summed up the race. I mean, a bollard rolling down the track. Virtual safety car, and you know what, for a little moment I was excited, but not even a 30-second virtual safety car could cheer me up from this one. 3 out of 10, I think that's the lowest I've ever given. Maybe that's a bit harsh, but anyway, let me know in the comments below. Driver of the day, I think I've gone against the grain a little bit once again. I've gone with Kimi Raikkonen, the general consensus Lando Norris. Norris did a really good job, however, the reason I didn't go for him was that Sainz was ahead. And, I mean, look, Sainz is on the list as well. I think those 2 did a really cracking job. But Raikkonen, again, just stood out for me a little bit today. Once again, proving that on a different strategy, even though he doesn't have the best car, can still make it work. So, plenty of overtakes from Raikkonen. Norris and Sainz almost in a league of their own, not having to really do any overtakes, but Raikkonen had to do that gritty overtakes through the chicane on the long straight a couple of times. Impressed with him, but all of those 3, to be honest with you, once again, could have been driver of the day. And then finally, just before we go, your championship, my God, looks a little bit like this. 36 points. Lewis Hamilton now leads the championship. It's 25 for a win and 1 for fastest lap. That's the maximum you can get, 26. So Hamilton, a lovely little buffer. And when you look at the gap now back to Sebastian Vettel, 76 points over 3 race wins. Crikey. Yeah, that's a huge gap. I don't think anyone expected that just 8 rounds in. Still plenty of time for that to turn around, but Mercedes proving once again they're the team to beat in 2019. Can that change next time in Austria? We'll have to wait and see. Thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments below who was your driver of the day, what was your race rating out of 10. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.